All right. Okay. So welcome CW 140, 141 to our module on the public and private aspect of creative nonfiction. Based on what Lee Gutkind describes in his article. And as you know, from having read the article, Lee Gutkind is known as the godfather of creative nonfiction. And as you also know, from having been under me in CW 100, I don't like to call it creative nonfiction anymore. No, why? Even Lee Gutkind, I think in that article, kasi bago yan no? He has an earlier edition, an earlier creative nonfiction manual where he still embraces the term creative nonfiction as something, novel. No? But now, in this article, you can see his own discomfort around the term creative nonfiction. So bakit ba pinoproblema natin yung term na creative nonfiction? Ngayon, year 2023. Why is it that, and I will be candid about it, and actually the only people that still call it creative nonfiction are the old fogies. And I don't want to be the old fogies. No, I want to be, I want to be where the people are. Ask all my questions and get some answers. No, so we want to be where the essay is today. And of course, in CW 100, we talked about it, reading the essay na, ay, hindi pala, sa CL 115 pala yun. But you did read that essay about reading the essay now, right? It's in your syllabus, it's in your course pack, because I did ask Sophia for your readings, and in CL 115. Thank you for your help, because I wanted to know what Ms. Gayangos shared with you, and I was glad that it was there. The reading about the essay now. So that's where we want to be, and that's why for me, I really have discomfort around the term creative nonfiction, which I think is passé. And I think even the godfather of creative nonfiction, Lee Gutkind, feels the same somehow. No, why? Where does Gutkind's discomfort around the term stem? So it's so weird. Before, may mga handouts yung mga estudyante nagtitingin. Tapos ngayon, laptop yung nasa. It's so weird. I will tell you that I find it really weird that my students have laptops in front of them instead of the readings, and that I don't have the readings in front of me. Okay, I actually have the printouts. Next time, dalhin ko. Para old school. Come on. Why shouldn't we call it creative nonfiction anymore? Yes. Let me see. Jacel. Jcel. Jcel. I should just write it here. Jcel. Sige. Mm-hmm. Okay, that's interesting. There's when you say creative nonfiction, there's nonfiction that's not creative. And I don't know if there's a superiority in terms of traditional nonfiction being not creative, especially today. Parang we kind of expect nonfiction to be creative, and I think that for me that's more appropriate. Now for today, na we don't actually expect nonfiction to be traditional anymore. And if we read nonfiction today that is not creative, we're going to look at it and say, what's the writing this way? Diba? Parang, what? Francis Bacon, is that you? Diba? Na the Baconian essay. So hindi na natin, I don't think we consider that superior anymore today. But that's an important distinction to make. That maybe before we had to call it creative nonfiction because of the prominence of non-creative nonfiction before. In the 90s, in the 90s, when you were not yet born. Do you know that? I mentioned it in CW 100. That the first time I heard creative nonfiction was when I was doing my MFA in Lasal, Luzon, in 1997, something like that, no, 97. So long time ago, when it was sexy, it was a new thing, creative nonfiction. We had a class. When I was doing my MFA, we couldn't do a thesis manuscript that was the essay because it wasn't considered a literary genre. In the MFA creative writing program, we could only write fiction, poetry, drama, which were the three genres. And that's why when creative nonfiction came into the scene, it was called the fourth genre. So there's a book, there's an anthology, that talks about the characteristics of the nonfiction as the fourth genre. But that was in the 90s. That was in the 90s when Lee Gutkind came out and said, okay, this is how nonfiction should be written. It should be, like he said in the tenet, is true stories well told. That's what he's famous for. That's the creative nonfiction in a capsule, true stories well told. But today, that doesn't even apply anymore to all the types of nonfiction that writers are writing, because that's very limiting too. When you write creative nonfiction that way, it's kind of today, for me, old-fashioned. Not just for me, a lot of more daring, more evolved essayists would expect the essay to be much more than the old model of creative nonfiction, which is the way I taught it before. Before I did my PhD, I was teaching this same subject, and my students at the time, if you talk to them, they will tell you that I taught it that way when it was called creative nonfiction, and earnestly, really earnestly. Ito yun, these are the elements, and that's that's what you see in the article of Gutkind. The basic, what are the basic things that they expect? How do you make a true story well told? You should have what? What's that? Yes, Gia. 5 hours. No, the one after the craft portion. How to make a true story, how to tell it well, you should have the formula. Write it like fiction. We should have what are the basic requirements of writing stories? Nandiyan sa article. It's in the article. There should, of course, be a narrative because it's a true story. But how do you tell it well? By using the section after the 5 hours, Gia. It's there. I checked it. As far as I know, it only went up to the 3rd hour. Seriously? Yeah. But how come my okay, so Because when I checked my copy, it was complete. I don't know why.
Until page 19
Really? Oh, okay. So that's why it's not there. All right. Sige. But wala naman. Mercury is not retrograde. I don't know what happened to that. I was told. Who was that who told me? Who was that? Cassie. Ceci, Princess, no, was the one who told me that the article was not complete. And then I checked my copy and it was complete. So that's why I said in Canvas, it's complete. But apparently it's not. Okay, so you're not gaslighting me, huh? I'm gaslighting you. Okay, so anyway, so those we'll send you a new copy of that later. But it's the elements of fiction, basically, which has to do with writing scenes. So it's the you know it from fiction. Okay, writing scenes, writing dialogue, and writing, of course, the characters having a frame, having a story frame, the narrative frame, etc. So all those things that they taught you in your fiction class. Okay, so basically applying the elements and techniques of fiction to the writing of nonfiction. And that's the old Gutkind model, which I feel, okay, sure, if you want to write it that way, go ahead. It is still written that way. And I think that that's what is called creative nonfiction. And we will still have a module on that. No, gagawin natin. Pag-aaralan natin yung elements na yon and how you can apply those elements of fiction to the writing of creative nonfiction. But what is it really? Doesn't mean it's wrong, huh? Okay, it's just for me. That's how it started. And today, you can still write it that way. And it will still be successful. It will still win the Palanca Award. This is the way I wrote my Sapay Kuma, by the way. I followed all the things that Gutkind said about writing creative nonfiction. And that's why you learned it in the aircon. Learned it in senior high school as a model of creative nonfiction. And therefore, it's successful. It won the Palanca Award for the essay in 19 Forgotten. Okay, 2008. So you can, of course, sure. No? You can still get a good grade for that. But if you want to stretch yourself, you would get out of that mode and really try and find different ways of writing. What is it really? What genre is it? The fourth genre that they called creative nonfiction. In short form, it would be the essay. Oh, what's wrong with that calling it the essay? Diba? What's wrong with calling it the essay? It is the essay. And that's what you learned last sem in CL 115, the essay. Diba? And that's it. No, that's what it is. And then if it's long form, then you call it what kind of long form it is. Then you can call it memoir if it's long form. If it's or a travelogue, if it's long form, whatever the form is, it's a detective, investigative journalism, long form. But in short form, it really is the essay. And there's nothing wrong with calling it the essay. And I remember early on, the writer Rosario Cruz Lucero, she was the one who first told me. Then this was early on, really early on. She was the one who first told me we shouldn't really call it creative nonfiction kasi parang adopted child. Kasi bakit kailangan niya ng modifier na creative? Hindi ba siya katulad ng, bakit yung fiction lang, poetry lang, drama lang. Diba? Pero bakit yung nonfiction kailangan may creative? Parang sampid na anak. Sabi niya. Oo nga, tinawag mo yung mga anak mo, short story, poem, play, creative nonfiction, halika nga dito. Diba? Special talaga siya, no? So, the way she explained it to me, naliwanagan ako. And this was before I did my PhD. So, si Rosario Cruz Lucero, you should read her work. No? And doon mo talaga makikita yung the way, how skillfully she merges the genre of nonfiction and fiction to write novels. No, so historical novels and not neo-colonial, decolonial narratives, no, of the Philippines. And I think yes, no, that's the way we understand it. No, if it were a family of children, kung ikaw si creative nonfiction, tawag sa'yo creative nonfiction, di ba? Parang may insecure ka. Kasi yung mga kapatid mo, hindi nila kailangan tawagin sila na creative. Di ba? Ano na sila? Ina-assume na lang na creative sila. Si poem, si short story. Diba? Even si Play, na wala na nagsusulat ngayon. Siya actually kick out. Pinalayas na si Play. Pero at least si Play pa rin ang tawag sa kanya. Yan. Wag akong awayin ng mga playwright. Totoo naman. Kasi ngayon film, ang uso ngayon script writing, di ba? So, siguro, panapanahon. Ayun yung panahon. And then, of course, the pandemic prevented us from really, mounting plays. So, parang, siya, yeah, in exile, si Play na anak natin. Pero, ang gusto natin gawin ngayon is i-embrace the fact that yung anak na si creative nonfiction ay si essay. Siya talaga si essay. So, at equal na sila. No? Ngayon, pwede na sa MFA program ng Lasal, pwede ka nang magsulat ng manuscript na collection of essays. And in the same way here, in our creative writing program, pwede. Dati nang pwede. Ang isusulat nyo ay collection of nonfiction or essays. Or in long form, memoir. All right. Any questions? Any insights about that? So si Lee Gutkind, ang sinasabi niya dyan ay ayaw na din niya kasi yung moniker na Godfather Creative Nonfiction kasi nga people expect him to be the creative nonfiction police. Diba? Na parang, and also, pero meron pa rin yung, yung journal, the journal na ang pangalan ay creative nonfiction, it's still live. And I think a lot of people still call it that. But for me, personal ko lang na, wag na. Kasi sampid si creative nonfiction. Move on na tayo. And then when you call it the essay, then you can embrace the other more experimental ways of writing it. Not just as true stories well told. Okay, now very limiting na siya today. And that's what I hope that you will enjoy in this class. No? Na you are really free to write it in the ways that you want to write. Okay, na hindi na siya talaga yung dating yun lang. That there's only one way to write creative nonfiction. All right. So anything else you'd like to add to that? So ano yung public and private na sinasabi ni Lee Gutkind? The public and private mode of the essay. Sabi niya, there's always a public and private mode. In whatever form of essay writing you're doing, there's always a public and private mode. Where do we find that? Saan? Kyle?
Public and private stories, basically. Of course, there's the private aspect of your essay, or like your personal life, your personal understanding, or the author's personal view of the world. And then there's the public history and the public, the shared culture of the community that you can connect that private story to. I think the example given was, so personal, like the memoir, but filled with information about bullfighting and poverty. So, like,
do you want to apply it to your own writing? Yung we published in Dagmay, the COVID essay, right?
yes.
Yeah. Okay. So what's the private? Obviously, the private is
The private part of it is like how I spent the pandemic and like the small moments with my family. I think one of the public, that was the private, and the public part that I connected that to was reading off the back of the airplane, yung what not to do and what to do during an airplane. And it says those, I think we've all read it naman na
Mhm.
you always put your mask on first before trying to help other people.
Mhm.
So that's how I connected it to it. To get through the pandemic, I had to take care of my own personal health first before I have other.
Mhm. Okay, so so that's public because it applies to a wider group of people than just you, no? And I think that's what you need to find. That's what we all need to find when we're writing personal essays. Because I think a lot of students have that concern, no, na when this my writing become too egocentric, and how do we make sure that we're not seen as just egocentric when you're writing pure, you're writing a memoir, you're writing personal essay, it's all I, this happened to me, this happened to me. But yeah, no, Gutkind reminds us that all the things that happen to you actually happen in a context, no? In a context, in a community context, like you mentioned earlier. None of us are walking around in a vacuum, and in all the writing that we do really is uh colored by our subjectivity, the private, the personal understanding of the experience. But those experiences do not happen in a vacuum. Those are really public experiences, especially, for instance, like the pandemic. That's universal. That's really universal. But what makes your writing interesting is the specifics. Diba? So finding that magic mix of the personal details, the very specific details, the localized details of your experience within the context of the larger shared human experience. Of course, ako, as a writer, wala akong illusion na lahat ng isusulat ko, meron siyang universal application. Okay? I think that's a trap. That's a trap from Father Galdon. No, when I was studying literature in the 80s, no, in LaSalle, we were taught that literature was about SHE. Did you study that in high school? Yeah, so Rick studied that. Significant human experiences. No, the she. Yan yung turo sa atin. That's why we study literature, because literature is about she. And that all these she, significant human experiences, are universal and timeless. Not true. Not true. We do not expect the experiences of Shakespeare to apply to us in Tugbok district. Right? And if your teacher is forcing you to apply Macbeth to your life as a universal and timeless experience, sira ulo siya. Diba? Buang siya. Diba? So wag natin pilitin yung na ang literature ay universal and timeless. Yung sa atin lang is make sure that when you write about your private personal experiences, that you remain sensitive to the context in which you write and your potential audience. And I think we do think about that anyway, no, that we have an ideal reader. No, we're not writing for ourselves alone. If you, at this point in your creative writing program journey, are still writing for yourself, then I'm sorry to tell you that is masturbation. And don't force us to read the fruits of your masturbation, right? Think of your ideal reader. Not everyone will get it, but someone will. And someone will get it, and someone needs it. Someone needs to read it. And the point of the workshop, as we mentioned, is for you to get in touch with that pulse, the pulse of the readership that you do have inherently, because writing needs an audience, and also as cultivated. We can cultivate our audience. So if they're not, for instance, if they're not yet ready for this kind of writing, your kind of writing, then you cultivate it. If you think that that's your voice, cultivate that audience. You keep writing in that voice, and and developing the audience for it. And eventually it will budge. I think it will budge. And that's what I hope, that's what I'm doing with my own writing. Because you can't keep doing the same thing over and over because it worked the first time, like you're just jumping out of the same hole twice, thrice. I get bored with that, doing the same thing in my writing all the time. No. So but the fact that you're student writers makes it more exciting kasi nga you're finding it eh. So you're free, you really are free. And we hope that you appreciate that kind of freedom. That's the point of the fact that your drafts are not graded. Okay. For me. And as you shared last time in your other classes, ganun din, no? Hindi ginigrade ang draft because that's where you should be free to explore how you want to treat your material and that particular assignment. All right. Anything else you'd like to add to that? Okay, so I'll end the recording here.